this video, we're going to discuss about operations on limits. So, meron tayong 5 theorems dito. So, let's say meron tayong 2 sequences of real numbers, 2 convergent sequences where a sub n, the sequence a sub n converge to L and the sequence b sub n converge to M. And let's say k, L, and M are real numbers. Then, for number 1, limit of constant k times a sub n is equal to k times the limit of a sub n. So, ibig sabihin, pwede natin siyang ilabas dito, hindi siya affected doon sa limit ng sequence a sub n. Then, for number 2, limit ng sum ng a sub n tsaka b sub n ay equal daw sa sum ng limit ng a sub n at ng limit ng b sub n. Okay? Or limit of the sum is equal to the sum of their limits. Next, limit ng product ng a sub n, b sub n is equal to the product of their limits. Limit of a sub n times limit of b sub n. Then for number 4, if a sub n is not equal to 0 for all natural number n and L not equal to 0, then yung limit daw ng reciprocal ng a sub n, which is 1 over a sub n, ay equal din sa reciprocal ng L, which is 1 over L. Okay? Then, for number 5, parang generalize lang natin yung number 4. Kung meron tayong a sub n not equal to 0 for all natural number n and L not equal to 0, then limit of the quotient b sub n over a sub n is equal to m over n. So, ang gagawin lang natin dito, ipoprove lang natin yung theorems 1, 2, 3. Then, pwede nyong gawing exercise or pang-practice yung proof naman ng 4 and 5. So, sa inyo yung 4 and 5, sa akin tong 1, 2, 3. Okay? So, let's start with number 1. Okay, so let's prove the first property. Limit of k times a sub n is equal to k times the limit of a sub n. So, for our proof, okay, so meron tayong dalawang case dito. Yung first case, yung k ay 0, tapos second case, k is non-zero real number. So, if k is 0, wala tayong problema dito. Kasi yung resulta niya, trivial lang. So, the result is trivial. So, dun tayo sa non-zero k. So, let k be not equal to 0. So, since yung a sub n natin ay convergent, so since yung sequence a sub n is convergent, then for all positive epsilon, merong mag-e-exist na natural number n such that for all n greater than or equal to n, the distance between a sub n minus L will be smaller than epsilon over the absolute value of k. Para ano natin na positive. Okay? Kasi katulad nga ng sinabi ko, yung epsilon is arbitrary. Okay? Now, kapag minultiply ko both sides by absolute value of k, since absolute value is always positive, hindi mababago yung symbol, so magiging ano siya, so this implies absolute value of k times absolute value of a sub n minus L less than epsilon. Cancel yung absolute value of k dito. Okay? Now, by property of absolute value, so pwede kong ipasok tong k sa loob. So magiging absolute value of k times the quantity a sub n minus L less than epsilon. Then, i-distribute natin, magiging absolute value of k a sub n minus kl less than epsilon. And this proves that the limit of k a sub n is equal to kl. So, therefore, or thus, limit of k a sub n as n approaches infinity is equal to kl. Which is, yung L natin, yan yung limit ng a sub n. K, limit of a sub n. As n approaches infinity. Okay? And yun na yung na-prove natin. So this is done. Okay, let's prove the second property. Limit of the sum is equal to the sum of their limits. So for our proof, since yung sequence na a sub n approaches to L, then by definition of limit of a sequence, then for any positive epsilon, may mag-exist, let's say n sub 1, natural number n sub 1, such that for all n greater than or equal to n sub 1, the absolute value of a sub n minus L is less than epsilon over 2. Okay, since epsilon is arbitrary. Now, since yung b sub n naman approaches m, then for any epsilon, any positive epsilon, may mag-e-exist din na n sub 2 element of set of natural numbers such that for all n greater than or equal to n sub 2, the absolute value of b sub n minus m is less than epsilon over 2. Now, i-let natin na yung n ay maximum ng n sub 1 and n sub 2. Okay? Then, for all n greater than or equal to n, the absolute value, so kailangan ko mapalabas ito. Okay? Kailangan ko mapalabas na yung limit nito ay ito. So, the absolute value of a sub n plus b sub n minus quantity L plus m. So, dapat mapakita ko na for all n greater than or equal to n, ito ay less than epsilon para masatisfy yung definition ng convergence sequence at makikita natin na yung ito ay nagko-converge or equal lang dito. Okay? Now, so, absolute value of a sub n plus b sub n minus quantity L plus m, pwede nating i-distribute yung negative. So, magiging ano siya? This is equal to absolute value of a sub n plus b sub n minus L minus m. Okay? And this is equal to absolute value, pagsasamahin ko tong a sub n minus L, so a sub n minus L, plus pagsasamahin ko yung b sub n minus L, so b sub n minus m. Okay? And by triangle inequality, this is less than or equal to absolute value of a sub n minus L plus absolute value of b sub n minus m. Okay? Now, since the absolute value of a sub n minus L is less than epsilon over 2 for all n greater than or equal to n sub 1, then, etong absolute value a sub n minus L, pwede nating gawing less than epsilon over 2. Plus, since absolute value of b sub n minus m is less than epsilon over 2 for all n greater than or equal to n sub 2, then, pwede nating ilagay dito ay epsilon over 2. So, ito ay greater than dito sa dalawang to. Ayun yung purpose kaya kinuha natin yung m to be the maximum of n sub 1, n sub 2. Kasi, kung sakaling n sub 1 yung maximum dito, o mas mali, ibig sabihin mas maliit yung n sub 2, so okay lang. Okay? Kasi mas large naman tong n, sigurado tayo dito sa n sub 2. So dito sa for all n greater than or equal to n sub 2, kung mas malaki yung n, ibig sabihin satisfy to. So same din sa isang case, kung sakaling n sub 2 naman yung maximum dyan. Ito yung purpose ng n equals maximum of ano. Okay? Kumbaga kinuha natin yung mas mataas, so sigurado tayo na satisfied to. Okay? Para magamit natin dito. Okay? Now, since epsilon over 2 plus epsilon over 2, this is equal to epsilon. And as you can see, absolute value of a sub n plus b sub n minus quantity L plus m less than epsilon for all n greater than or equal to n. Then, by definition of convergence sequence or limit of a sequence, yung limit ng a sub n plus b sub n as n approaches infinity is equal to L plus M. L plus M. Which is yung L, yan yung limit ng a sub n, plus yung M, yan yung limit ng b sub n. As n approaches infinity. Okay? Which is yun yung pinaprove natin. So this is done. Now let's prove the third property. Limit of a product is equal to the product of the limits. Okay? Now, for our proof, since yung sequence of a sub n is convergent, then katulad ng diniscuss ko or prinove ko last video, kapag daw convergent ang isang sequence, ibig sabihin yung sequence na yon ay bounded. So ibig sabihin, since ito ay convergent, bounded siya. So there exists, let's say m naught, positive m naught, such that the absolute value of a sub n is less than or equal to m naught for any natural number n. Okay? Now, para saan to? So, gagamitin natin to mamaya. Lalo na tong positive m naught. Okay? Now, let's proceed to our next statement. So, since yung limit ng b sub n ay equal sa m according to our hypothesis, then by definition of convergent sequence, for any positive epsilon, may mag-exist na natural number, let's say n sub 1. So there exists a natural number n sub 1 such that for all n greater than or equal to n sub 1, the absolute value of b sub n minus m is less than epsilon over 2 m naught. Okay? So okay lang to kasi yung m naught ay positive. So sigurado tayo na positive lang din to. And take note again na yung epsilon kasi ay arbitrary, kaya pwede to, yung multiple o kaya yung fraction ng epsilon. Okay? Now, so gamitin natin yung isa pang assumption. Since yung limit ng a sub n ay equal daw sa L according to our assumption, then by definition again ng convergent sequence, for any positive epsilon, may mag-exist daw na natural number, let's say n sub 2, such that for all n greater than or equal to n sub 2, the absolute value of a sub n minus L is less than epsilon over 2 quantity absolute value of m plus 1. Okay? So, medyo may tricks dito sa part na to kung bakit ganyan yung napili ko. And by the way, sigurado tayo na positive to kasi etong absolute value of m, yung m na yan, kinuha ko yan sa limit ng b sub n. And ginawa kong absolute value kasi hindi natin alam kung positive to o baka negative. Para sure tayo, gawin natin positive. And nilagyan ko siya ng plus 1 kasi malay natin yung m na yan ay 0. Okay? So para sure tayo na hindi mag-0 yung denominator at hindi maging epsilon over 0. Lagyan natin ng plus 1. Okay? Now, let n be the maximum of n sub 1, n sub 2. So again, in-explain ko na to kanina, maximum na ito tsaka to, para magamit natin itong dalawang to. Okay? Then, for all n greater than or equal to n, ang kailangan natin palabasin, yung limit nito ay ito. So, absolute value of a sub n, b sub n, ito yun, minus lm, ito yun. Dapat mapalabas natin na yung absolute value nito ay less than epsilon for all n greater than or equal to n, para ma-prove natin to. Okay? But this is equal to absolute value of a sub n, b sub n minus a sub n m plus a sub n m. Para saan to? So mamaya magagamit natin yan, minus lm. Okay? And by triangle inequality, pwede na natin paghiwalayin to. So this is less than or equal to absolute value of a sub n, b sub n minus a sub n m plus the absolute value of a sub n m minus lm. Okay? I-factor out natin yung a sub n dito. So may common factor siya na a sub n. Tapos gamitan na rin natin ang property ng absolute value. So ilabas na rin natin yung a sub n. So this is equal to absolute value of a sub n times the absolute value of b sub n minus m plus i-factor out ko rin yung m, tapos ilabas din natin by property of absolute value. So this will be absolute value of m times absolute value of a sub n minus l. Okay? Now, this is less than or equal to m naught. So, saan galing to? Kasi yung absolute value of a sub n, this is less than or equal to m naught. So, pwede kong ilagay dito m naught. Okay? Then, absolute value of b sub n minus m is less than epsilon over 2 m naught. Okay? So, epsilon over 2 m naught. Plus, so stay ko lang tong absolute value of m. Tapos, itong absolute value of a sub n minus l, this is less than epsilon over 2 quantity absolute value of m plus 1. Okay? Yan. Now, so as you can see, nagamit natin to, tsaka to, pati yung idea nito, tsaka to. Okay? So, nagamit natin to dahil dito sa maximum. Okay? Now, balik tayo dito. So, pwede nating i-cancel to, and this is epsilon over 2 yung matitira. But, dito, so by the way, lagay ko na, less than epsilon over 2. So, bakit less than yung ginawa ko? Kasi dito, tatanggalin ko yung absolute value of m tsaka absolute value of m plus 1, which is yung absolute value of m ay nasa numerator, ito ay nasa denominator, at kung mapapansin nyo, kung tatanggalin ko yan, mas malaki yung tinanggal ko sa denominator. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, this is less than epsilon over 2 plus epsilon over 2. And epsilon over 2 plus epsilon over 2, this is equal to epsilon. And as you can see, absolute value nito is less than epsilon for all n greater than or equal to n. So this proves that limit of the product is equal to the product of their limits. So therefore, limit of a sub n, b sub n is equal to lm equal sa limit of a sub n times limit of b sub n. Okay? And this is done.